All right, welcome. So excited, looking forward to this conversation today with Reverend Paraman Barsel. Give a little bit of background on Reverend Paraman. He has been a disciple of Sri Swami Satchidananda since 1970. He has served as president of Yogaville West, the Washington D.C, New York Institutes, and Yogaville East in Connecticut. He has also served on the Board of Trustees and Spiritual Life Board at Satchidananda Ashram-Yogaville, Virginia. Paraman was the editorial consultant on Inside the Yoga Sutras, as well as several of Sri Swami Satchidananda's works, including the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. He also helped to design the first integral yoga Hatha basic teacher training program and has taught Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga, and the other branches of integral yoga for many years. And lastly, he currently serves with his wife Lakshmi on the Ashram Prison Project and leads a weekly sutra study, which they have done for the past 16 years. So quite a lot there. Thank you so much for taking the time today, Reverend Paraman.
Thank you, Avi. And we're also next door neighbors.
We are next door neighbors.
We left out maybe the most important thing. I'm in close proximity to Avi's most adorable daughter, Zen, who everyone at the ashram loves on site.
How lucky am I? Yeah. It's so fun to live in this community and just have people such as yourself and Lakshmi just right in our vicinity. So maybe I did something right in past lives. I don't know.
Maybe I did too.
Nice. Okay, I'd like to begin with this question that I'll ask you. What matters to you?
For a long time, I've been to an probably uncool degree obsessed with full awakening or enlightenment. That's what matters most. I've always wanted to know the truth. As a young kid, I thought I could get that through science and went into it deeply enough as a boy scientist to where I saw the limitations of understanding the universe with the limitations of the mind. And then I thought, okay, I'll go past just the intellect and do it with the arts, and fancied myself a writer and saw the limitation of that. When I heard the teachings of yoga for the first time in this lifetime, it was like an explosion in my consciousness. It was like, oh, there's a way to transcend the mind, which is the only possible way to experience the truth. So that's always been the goal of my life. What that's translated into as what matters to me most now is what Gurudev's given us as the path, which is very multivaried, but I would say probably his biggest emphasis was service, and it matters to me a lot to be of loving service to one and all the time. And I see that as more important than my personal path to awakening. But hopefully my mind won't hear me saying this, but it also happens to be the best path to awakening that I know of, along with study and meditation and all the practices and, Jnana Yoga and inquiry and everything. There's nothing that is as powerful than love. And love is the essence of service. You serve naturally if you love. So that's what matters to me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So combining maybe the two things that you mentioned here, because you talked about investigating, truth via the mind, when you were younger.
Yeah.
And then now maybe coming to a place more of just feeling and just loving and serving. So I think there's a not knowing there, right?
Yeah.
In a way, it seems like a human predicament that we can know so much. The mind is so powerful that we kind of convince ourselves that we can know everything, and we forget about the limitations of our knowing. Is that your experience too?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the only thing I know for sure is, and it's reassuring to have something that you know for sure, and that's that I don't know. I'm confident that I don't know, because I never will, because yoga is not about the individual knowing. The yoga is about transcending that limited I and experiencing the truth as oneself, which, whatever that brings to mind, those words, I know is incorrect because those words are mental, right? And the mind is, by definition, not capable of understanding the truth. But it can lead you to transcend itself. That's the magic of it. It can lead you to an awakening where you experience yourself as truth.
Yeah, and I think this awakening seems to be connected to humility. That when I'm really feeling humble about what I can know and what I can't know, it's like it's this refreshing breath of relaxation where it's like, oh yeah, like I don't need to know everything, and I don't know, because it's so tied in with the truth. But it seems that maybe our culture is really far on the other end of these things, where everyone is really strong about their opinions and I know what's right and what's wrong. It almost seems like to be genuinely humble is a very rare quality.
Yeah, you're reminding me of a favorite Hasidic story. I don't remember the Rebbe's actual name, but this is a true Hasidic Rebbe from years ago. I mean, Hasidic meaning, for those who don't know, this is the mystical branch. It's like Sufism is to Islam, Hasid, the real Hasidic movement is to Judaism. And so this rabbi was known, let's call him Moishe, I don't remember the name, as Moishe the Humble. And all of his students called him Moishe the Humble, Reb Moishe the Humble. And once a new visitor questioned him and said, well, if you're so humble, why do you allow them to call you Moishe the Humble? And he said, well, actually, it's not a joke. I'm doing the accent as if I'm telling one of my many Jewish jokes that I love and other jokes. But it's actually supposedly what he said. He said, I'm so humble that I don't even think that being humble is a virtue. So it's not a problem. Yeah. Gurudev used to talk a lot about the greatness of being able to say, I don't know. In fact, he said it was probably the greatest thing. He loved a Zen monk who visited us once back in the 70s, who basically, when he gave satsang, the Zen monk, the main thing that he would say over and over again is, and Gurudev liked to do a little imitation of him, so I'll do an imitation. I had a very deep voice, and he would go, I don't know. And you'd ask him anything and he would say, I don't know. I mean, he did have other things to say, but that was the essence of it. And Gurudev loved that. He loved that. And he mentioned I believe, a South Indian saying, Many of his sayings were from where he grew up in India, in the South, in Tamil Nadu, and he would quote, the saying was, you should give an elephant, which is like a very big offering, right? The big offering of an elephant for one thing that's so valuable. And what is that one thing? To be able to say, I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah. Same teaching.
Yeah. Is it like a new way of living, like a total paradigm shift where, I have to make decisions for my life, what to do with my time here and there. But instead of trying to find the right answer, I open up to the reality that I'm really just like guessing, like I'm feeling for this or I'm feeling for that. But ultimately, I don't know what's right for me.
Right. Well, if you have, see, I'm mixing a true integral yogi, I guess, or else I'm just extremely mixed up. But I'm mixing Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. That's what I love about integral yoga. Some people would say you should be all one way, just intellectual or just devotional or just whatever. I've always felt that we're all of those things. Many of us are. Some people are just very comfortable with self-inquiry and analysis, and they're jnana yogis, and they don't want to hear any of it. And that's perfectly fine. I'm very much the other extreme from that. Even in a given day, there's many moments where I'll feel very devotional, and there's other moments where I'll feel very investigative, more of a jnana yoga approach, and other times that I feel more that it's all based on practice, more of Raja Yoga or Karma Yoga, feeling more active. I just want to serve. So I have always felt that one of the greatnesses of integral yoga is that you can integrate all of these aspects of your personality. So, the Karma Yoga practical side, boldly makes decisions and just, does some work, does some service. But what I was going to say is that if you have faith that you're in God's hands, which is, of course, the essence of the bhakti approach, then you have nothing to worry about, because your decisions are not going to be your decisions. Where did the idea come from that you should have that question? And where did the idea come from that you should have that decision? If you have faith in it, and sometimes I just put God on the spot. I just say that, I'm going to take it that this is your decision for me. And if it isn't, I know that you can make it clear. So I have complete confidence that I'm just going to go forward and follow what seems like the right decision. My mind like that in a blink of an eye. So you'll do that.
Does this have to do also with, our relationship to time itself, right? Like I can get hung up about if I made a different decision in the past, what my life would have been like if I took this other job or traveled to this different place or, married this other person. But I didn't do those things. And it's impossible to know what that road would have been like. So the only reality is the actual road that we're all traveling on. But it seems like, regrets are are very, very easy to have regrets, as opposed to total acceptance of what is happening in my life, including the challenging things, because, is it not very true that in the suffering, in the challenge, I learn something that, allows me to, exist even better. But ultimately it's even, I think death is the elephant in the room there too, because, even if I die, right now in this moment, am I cool with that? And can I accept that that was what was supposed to happen simply because that's what happened?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about some of the biggest challenges in life. I mean, regret, and you don't have acceptance of what is, which would one way that comes is with total faith. That's Gurudev was fond of saying. One of his greatest mantras for me is he would often say, "Past is past." Just that, past is past. It's already behind you. Just forget it. Don't brood about the past. Don't worry about the future. Just live in the golden present. So when the regrets come, it's nice that they're gnaw at us and that they're painful, because that pain is an immediate reminder. Oh, I'm not in the present. I'm dwelling on something that's already passed. Of course, now that's the Bhakti answer. The boy scientist is that you say whatever we chose, and I'm sure that a lot of quantum physicists nowadays believe in this many worlds theory, and believe that the entire universe branches every time we make a decision, and that there's another universe in which we have followed that path, which is mind-boggling. I find it very unsatisfying as a scientific theory. And yet there's a work by Master Shivananda that describes that vividly, a rare translation that he did of the Yoga Vashishta, that only in one of the editions has a story called the story of Leela. Appropriately, the queen's name is Leela. Leela is the divine play. So this is all play. And in that, the goddess Saraswati comes to the grieving queen who can't get over the death of her husband, and takes her for a spectacular science fiction-esque tour of the many worlds in which the king isn't dead, and worlds in which they have all sorts of different lives, all these parallel branching worlds. So as much as I don't particularly love thinking about many worlds theory, because it sounds so, there's something unsatisfying about it for me. There's Master Shivananda before any of this was even known in Western physics, laying all of that out. And then mysteriously, as if to demonstrate the many worlds, I've seen other editions of the same book from the Divine Life Society, and they don't have that version of the story. So that seems to be a many worlds thing itself. So anyway, I'm going all over the map with regrets. And your question was about time. I think that anything that divorces us from the golden present is painful, because it's what pain is. It means that we're violating our true nature. I'm not meant to drink nitric acid. So if I try to drink nitric acid, hopefully before I can even get a drop, or half a drop, I'll feel terrible pain because it violates my nature. That's not something that that body can handle. Well, neither is brooding about the past or worrying about the future. That's why they cause us pain, because we're violating our very own nature. So in a way, it's a wonderful thing that we get those instant feedback that shows us a course correction back to the present. There's never any problem in the present. And the problem with death, the elephant in the room, yeah, it's a big elephant in the room. A lot of the teachings of yoga don't really entirely work or aren't satisfying. The teachings about suffering, for example, if death is real. The fact that death is not real, which is core teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, core teaching of Gurudev's, and of many of the yoga scriptures, means that there's always another chance. We go on. So the suffering is not some final punishment. The person born with a disability, that isn't like, why would God do that terrible thing to their one and only life? No, it's a lesson for a particular time, designed to take the soul closer to enlightenment. Which is something by the way, we apply to ourselves, not to others. We don't look at somebody else suffering and say, oh, you don't have to worry about anything. Your suffering isn't real. It isn't final. No, all these teachings are best applied to us and not in any way imposed on others.
Right. And yeah, when I think even about myself and how to utilize that teaching, I think I can utilize it in terms of my perception of what's happening, on a global scale, on just the totality of the unfoldment. That it's so, if I look at what's happening, examples of horror and tremendous amounts of suffering, and then also wonderful things that are happening. Like, you can't put this stuff on a spreadsheet, and like, okay, I'm going to put all the really bad things that have happened throughout history, and I'm going to put all the really good things, and I'm going to try to tally it up and see whether or not the good things, total up to a higher number than the bad things. Like, it's so impossible. And for me, that's a great example of my limitation of why I should not know, because I can't know. I'm just a human. I'm a part of this whole thing that's happening. And why not trust? And that's a big question for me in terms of faith. Like, why not trust and have faith? And I can tell that when I do that, I seem to be operating on I'll say a healthier frequency than when I'm doubting.
Yeah. Yeah. Reverend Jagannath, my dear brother, is very fond of saying that the real essential definition of yoga is that yoga is what, let me try for the right verb, it completely releases you from suffering. Yeah. So why not trust? Because the opposite, leading a life of distrust, causes more and more suffering. Leading a life of regret causes more and more suffering. Leading a life of fearing death, and seeing the world as completely unjust just causes more and more suffering. And whatever suffering and negativity we see in the world, why are we just focusing on that? It's because at the very same time that's going on, there's tremendous beauty. Of course, there's a big chunk of the world that is, constantly pushing the most negative, scary, ideas and news at us, because I guess it sells advertising.
Well, I think it's selling something else too, that, to be kind of, a doomsayer, everything is falling apart, right? Like, the argument that's someone that has that perspective, like, things are terrible, for someone who is, trusting in the unfoldment, they would say, well, you're not going to do anything to fix things, because you don't realize, because you're just using, faith as essentially an excuse not to serve, right? Like, there seems to be a connection between feeling that everything is terrible and actually fixing and making things better, right? And they just think that if you did trust, then you would just become lazy and you wouldn't take any action that would be beneficial. But what if it's actually the opposite is the case?
Yeah, exactly. That you get paralyzed because you think everything is so terrible that there's no point, which you hear a lot. Some great minds and people that I love and admire, and I'm not talking about Sangha folks, but everyone's our Sangha ultimately, get paralyzed by that kind of thinking. That the end is near. The end is here. And there's plenty of evidence for that, but there's also plenty of evidence for there being some of the most beautiful manifestations of humanity that you'll ever see right now in the human spirit. Not to mention all of nature.
Mm.
And so none of what I'm saying means don't do anything. But if we go forward doing, trying to serve, trying to fix problems, trying to address them, all of which is excellent, but we do it coming from a very unpeaceful place, that work and service is not going to be at a very high level. I mean, what if Martin Luther King Jr. had only had doom and gloom and not had a dream and not seen, not been able to say, I've been to the mountaintop. I mean, how we wouldn't be quoting him now. Almost everything that we quote is because he had this tremendous faith and positivity. And some people would say, yeah, but look what happened to him. And I would say, yeah, look what happened to him. He transformed the world, and he knew in the end that it was worth risking his life to do that. What could be better? Is just having a few more decades make your life better? I don't think so.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, how are we assessing a quality life or what we want to live? Like, just in the amount of time and the amount of years, or the amount of impact that we're able to have. And taking us back to service then, and for me, my favorite teaching probably from Sri Gurudev is, who will be the happiest, the one who brings happiness to others. And I think it's so powerful because this is actually like the paradigm shift that changes everything. Whether or not I actually believe that, right? Or is that just like a fuzzy, fluffy saying that sounds really good? But what are the implications if I actually believe and discover that this is the truth? That by living a life of service, I'm going to find, it's actually the most selfish thing. So it's like, by being selfless, I'm actually in a very deep way being selfish at serving myself by doing it. It's like this contradiction type of thing. But is that not really the case? Like, it seems to me that we all feel really good when we're able to have a positive impact on other people, environment, nature, everything.
Well, and he's very specific. It's not grandiose. He doesn't say who will be the happiest person, the one who removes the suffering of others, the one who, removes the problems of the world. He just says the one who brings happiness to others. And that could be, your daughter smiling at somebody, it could be me smiling at somebody. Not quite as effective as your daughter. But I was once cute. I have no doubt that this is true in my life. Even though I don't know anything, I do know what my experience has been. My experience is, it's not a theory. These aren't lofty words to live up to. This is absolutely my day-to-day experience, is that when I bring happiness to others, I'm the happiest. I totally forget my pains, my woes, physical pains, mental pains, all of that goes if I'm just sharing love, sharing joy with others. There's nothing like that. In the All Face Hall of Lotus, for those who may not know, the downstairs portion has display areas that correspond to the altars upstairs of all the different faiths. And in the Islamic section, each of these has a bunch of quotes and a bunch of artifacts and very awe-inspiring things. There's a quote that says, to paraphrase it, because I don't remember the exact words, it says that there's a place in heaven for somebody who brings laughter to anyone else. You know, I've always loved that because I'm a good joke teller. So, so I've done my fair share. Who will be the happiest person? That's absolutely true, not a theory. Another big example of it that comes to my mind is I love to cook and have cooked, many a delectable dish over the years. And I think anybody who cooks knows the answer to this. Which is better, when you cook something really good and you're about to eat it and you get it just the way you want and you go, oh, this is fantastic, and you're by yourself and you eat it, or cooking that and finding someone else that you love and saying, taste this, and then you eat it together. There's no question, any cook knows that, sharing it makes it not just twice as good. It's like, 1,000-fold better, so yeah, it's beautiful. It's the way to live.
That's such a good example. Very clear. And can it be like a compass for us in our lives? Like, let's say I'm going through a change and I don't know what to do. I need a new job, or I'm moved to a new place. And like, so often, we need to make a decision. And what am I using to make that decision, right? Okay, like I need to make a certain amount of money and have certain people around, all these things. But what if bringing happipiness to others was the compass? And I had faith in that if I do that, everything else is just going to be taken care of. So like I'm in the starting point, and the question I'm using to move from that position is, what can I do that will bring happiness to others?
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, what a great compass. I like the way you put that. And you feel the expansion of that, right? You feel the spaciousness of that kind of thought, and you feel total contraction if it's as soon as you think, what do I need to make me happy? You feel yourself shrivel down, and there's immediately a lot of fear because that can be taken away from you. But giving happiness to others, and even there, of course, you can't be attached to giving, to seeing them, happy because of what you did, but that intention is enough to free you. So if I find myself conflated by, my problems, and and like everybody, I experience my share of that. The very best thing I can do is to just forget myself, and have some loving happiness sharing with anybody else. To get out of your head. It's amazing. It's like, it's the greatest. I mean, people talk about all their favorite pain remedies and anodynes, and some people are trying to drug or intoxicate themselves out of pain. There is nothing that can come even close in pain relief, not temporary pain relief, but real pain relief, as sharing loving happiness with others. There's nothing. And those are all, by the way, those are the same. We don't have to parse, well, am I sharing love? Am I sharing happiness? Am I sharing light? Or am I sharing peace? To me, those are all the same thing. All the same thing. Like when we say, may the entire universe be filled with peace and joy, love and light. Those are all the same. You have any one of those, you've got all of them.
But I think you hit upon an important factor, and that's lightness. Right. Not being too invested in the outcome. So seems like very, very human to set an intention. Okay, I have an intention to build this thing or do this thing, but how much am I holding on to the outcome of what that's going to be? So to me, this is like the sweet spot to get to. Is like, okay, I choose the intentions that feel really good and resonate with me, but I'm still not holding on too tightly. I'm still just looking at it all like it's the Leela, it's the play. Like, we'll see what happens with it. I got to move in some direction, so I'll move in this one, but see what happens.
Yeah, Guru defines my favorite definition that he gives of karma yoga or service is that it's action done just for the joy of it, just for the joy of acting. You can't do action for the joy of acting if you're holding on to a result. Yeah. And if you're holding on to the result, you're not really caring about the other person. That's just disguised. They must be happy. They must be saved. That's just disguised ego. What you're really saying is, if I don't see them appreciating what I give and loving it and being happy and being benefited, I won't be happy. It all comes back to that. You have to let go of that. That's acting for the joy of acting. It's like someone once said about dance, that a dancer, when they move from one side of the stage to the other, the dance isn't about moving from one side of the stage to the other. It's just about the joyous movement.
The process.
Yeah, not setting. It's not the objective of Baryshnikov or Fred Astaire or whoever you want to name, to get from point A to point B. That's never the objective. Okay,
so let me ask you that in terms of the word enlightenment. Yeah. And it seems that even in the spiritual community, right, like enlightenment can be set as a goal.
Right.
Right. And so is that a reasonable goal to set, or am I instead just okay with the process of moving toward that endlessly?
Yeah, better be. I must be enlightened. I must be enlightened right now. That's a way to completely drive yourself crazy and ensure that you won't be enlightened. That's like lying in bed and going, having insomnia and going, I want to sleep now. Why can I think now? If you've ever tried that, it doesn't work. On the other hand, having it as a goal reminds me of a favorite experience of mine, which was when I was a little kid. I used to have nightmares. I don't remember what age, but I was very young. I was having very bad nightmares, and I was in one of these nightmares. I was being chased through a haunted house, and it looked like a typical haunted house that you've seen in movies. And I was being chased by a nameless, faceless monster. I never actually saw what was behind me nipping at my heels, but I knew it was huge, and that it was a monster and it was going to devour me. So I'm running. And you know how those dreams are. They just start in the middle sometimes. And so I'm immersed in that. And there's one of those big winding central staircases that you often have in haunted houses. So I start running up the winding central staircase, landing of the second floor, landing of the third floor, landing of the fourth floor. That's the top floor. There's nowhere else to go. It's nipping at my heels. It's right there. I look up, and there's a low ceiling over my head, and there's a trap door. And in the dream, I jumped up and I threw open the door from this dark, smoky, haunted house. Somehow, it was a great feat of athleticism. I threw open the trap door, grabbed the sides, pulled myself through just as I was about to get, like if you were doing the cartoon version, I was about to be snatched. But I just made it, and the door slammed shut behind me, and I'm suddenly in this bright white attic room like this, the way that might look, but everything's painted white. The floor, the ceiling, the walls are all white. Everything's white. It's completely empty except for one thing. Right in front of me and this is going to come back to that point, believe it or not, is a woman dressed all in black in a black rocking chair in this dazzling bright white room. So there was a tremendous contrast, the monster, the darkness, the smokiness, and bam, bright light. And the woman, it would look like the painting Whistler's Mother, that I think everyone knows what that looks like. It looked just like that, in profile, on the rocking chair, black. But to a little kid, this was like a witch, which makes it sound that much more remarkable. I didn't know from Whistler's Mother as a little, 3, 4, 5-year-old, whatever it was. So she's right in front of me, and she turns her head to look at me from the rocking chair. And for some reason, I don't feel any fear. And this is all happening, boom, boom, very, very fast. She turns her head and looks at me. I can even to this day remember her eyes. There was something about that. And she says, do you want to wake up? I told you we'd get back to enlightenment. She said, do you want to wake up? And I went, I didn't say, well, let me think about that for a while. That is not what happened. I said, yes, like that. Do you want to wake up? Yes. And then she initiated me on the spot. So obviously she was actually the guru. And she said, repeat. This is what she said. I'm a little Jewish boy, Philadelphia, and she says, repeat, woo, woo, woo. Now, a lot of people laugh when they hear that because it sounds funny. It sounds funny to me too, but it turns out that woo is a name of the absolute in Chinese, in Taoism. The field that the yin yang symbol rests on, the empty field, is known as the wu, the absolute. So it actually is a divine name. So she says, do you want to wake up? Yes. Repeat, woo, woo, woo. So I go, woo. I didn't say, what does that mean? Why should I do that? What do you mean repeat? No, the monster had just almost got me by the heels. I started repeating woo, 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 woo. Next thing you knew, I was awake, repeating it out loud, awake in my bed, So that's what I think about enlightenment. It's like, it's not a choice or something to think about. If you know deep in your soul that you want to wake up, then it's not only a question of there's nothing wrong with it, you have no choice, and that happens when you're suffering enough.
How long did you repeat woo, woo, woo for?
It wasn't long, just a few, maybe 3, 4 repetitions. And then I was awake repeating it. And then I stopped because I saw that I was awake. And the footnote to that is that for what seems in my memory like years afterward, maybe it wasn't, because I was a little kid, but for let's just say a long time afterward, whenever I would have a nightmare, a moment would come of lucidity, lucid dreaming, so to speak, where I would go, oh, I know what to do. And I would repeat, woo, 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 and I'd wake up. Yeah. So it was a good initiation, and it was japa, and it was the guru, and it was pretty amazing. Divine Mother, Shakti, Guru, whatever you want to call that.
It's like it comes back for me to this moment and what is possible in this moment, right? So like how to be enlightened.
Yeah. Well, if you're cold and you want to wake up, then, on the other hand, if I had repeated woo, woo, woo and had not woken up right away, what would I do? Stop? I think I would have just kept repeating, have to do something,
Right.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, I know, but, Gurudev's basic teaching about all this is you already are enlightened. We all are. We just I love when he would say this, you're already enlightened, you just don't know it, which is that's so interesting. The idea that you're already enlightened and just don't know it. But it actually does make a big difference that you're already enlightened, because I already was actually lying in my bed, not a part of the haunted house world at all. That didn't actually exist. It didn't exist outside of me. It was within. All the teachings that sound so strange and philosophical or new agey or whatever about, oh, it's all within you, the monster is within you. It's literally true. When you wake up from a dream, you say, well, where was the dream? Where was the house? Where was the whole universe that house existed in, the whole world? Where was the monster? Where was the guru, the old lady? That was, you would have to say, well, that was just in me. That was my dream. And I was already awake. I just didn't know.
Yes.
Awake, meaning being in my safe bed.
Right. See, I think of then wanting to just be like an investigator, internal investigator, which makes the most sense. We're just like become really interested in what's happening internally.
Yeah.
Right. But that seems like a challenge, sometimes to believe that it's all inside, or that I should, prioritize that, really investigating what's happening inside.
Yeah. Well, that's where integral yoga, like I was saying, is great. If that's the impulse that's the strongest in you, at least at that time, and by all means, investigate it. Gurudev very often, his answer to maybe one of the commonest, if not the commonest answer he would give to problem questions that he would get all the time at satsang, he would say, analyze, why do you have that fear? Or analyze, whatever it is, So, he definitely recommended it. But at other times, you don't feel like that at all. And you just want to throw up your hands and say, I'll do whatever you say, or help me.
It's breaking new ground, right? I think it's like, it's going where I haven't gone, like to analyze and to understand more. It's uncharted territory.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not so easy to go into uncharted territory. So I think for myself, the way I do that is by not taking myself so seriously. That if I'm really taking myself seriously, then maybe I'm scared or worried about what it is I'm going to discover. But if it's all just light and I don't have so much investment in what my standing is, so to speak, then I'm free to analyze.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing about the analysis is that until you awaken, you're analyzing the dream, and you can figure out everything in the dream. It's not the same as being awake. And in fact, if you freeze frame the moment when she turned to me and said, do you want to wake up? And I said, yes. If we freeze frame right there, and you the great interviewer, entered the dream and said, what do you mean by that? When you say you want to wake up, what do you mean? I would honestly have to say, I can actually do that myself. I can honestly see myself at that moment in the dream. And I know that my answer would be, I don't know. I just know that I want to wake up. I don't know what that means. I don't know what I will be when I wake up. I don't actually even know what waking up is. I want out of here. I know that, I want to transcend this.
It was an instinct. And I think you emphasized saying yes immediately.
Oh yeah, no thought.
And it was only because of the instinct. If you tried to analyze what does she mean by waking up, like you said, it wouldn't have had the same effect.
Yeah, and I might have been devoured in the dream. Yeah, another way to wake up.
We don't have too much time left, but I'm totally going to change the subject right now, but there is something else I wanted to ask you about, and that is relationship. Mm-hmm. Just in terms of being in a relationship, having a partner, being in close physical proximity to another person while you're both doing this internal work and on a journey of self-discovery, and there's bound to be rubbing and scrubbing. Just any reflections that you have from your experience with that how does it add to your life, being in a relationship, and how might it compare if you were on your own?
Yeah, well, I always feel like Gurudev sent me Lakshmi because he felt like I needed constant supervision full time. He said, this is a person that needs to live with me full time, Gurudev said. So he came in the form of my beloved Lakshmi, and I don't want to, in the Jewish tradition, you say, I don't want to beshry. I think that's the term too much, but I'm very, very fortunate that way. He said, Gurudev would say, in marriage, have a partner that will make you think about God constantly, because they're great and inspiring and they always think of your highest. I was lucky enough to get that. He said, or equally good, have a partner that makes you think about God all the time because you think, God, why are you doing this? How could you send me somebody like that? So it can be a great path, having a partnership like that. And of course, monastics have that too. They have that in their sangha. They're not climbing alone. They have a group. Nobody. I don't think anybody has ever. I may be wrong, but I don't think anybody has ever climbed Everest alone, ever. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's some Sherpa that did that. But I think it's a team effort. Having that team there 100% of the time, you really need if you're like me. So if you share, what Gurudev said is the most important thing in marriage is if you share the same goal, then you can be like two wings of one bird flying together. If you have different goals, fundamental goals, not petty little details don't matter, then one of you wants to go this way and one of you wants to go that way, you're not going to be able to be like two wings of a bird. And as you grow, you will grow, apart, which is okay. I mean, that happens. And, that's a necessary path also. Yeah. But for me, it's a tremendous thing to have someone at your side that always thinks of your highest. And I would extend it beyond relationship, but I mean, that's a great relationship, but also the relationship with the Sangha. We're lucky enough to have so many people who just want the highest for us and understand that. That's what's so great about living in community like we do of fellow seekers. Right.
Yeah. There does seem to be this balance between internal and external, right? Mm-hmm. So like in a way, you say, it's all within, but environment, Sangha really has an effect on us too. We can't count on that like, oh, if only I'm in the optimal environment, everything's going to be great and I'm going to be happy. That's probably not the case. But it's also really helpful, like you said, to have beautiful examples around you.
Yeah, it's enormous. I mean, Gurudev cited Sangha maybe more frequently than anything. He would quote Shankaracharya, founder of. Yeah, I mean, here's the founder of sannyas order that our sannyasis are a part of, the Shankaracharya from many, 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 many centuries ago, and also Advaita Vedanta. It's all one. There's no duality at all. So you talk about liberation. There is no liberation because there's no bondage. All of that doesn't even exist. So it's about as extreme Jnana Yoga as you can get. And yet he said that all you need is the company of like-minded seekers. And he does this 4-line couplet that Gurudev would quote all of the time to us as probably being the single most important thing. Just get yourself in good company. Everything else follows. It's 4 steps. The last step is enlightenment, complete liberation, Jivan Mukta state. And all that you did in the first step was you got out of the bad company and put yourself, he doesn't even say get out of the bad company. He says, just put yourself in good company. Because Gurudev pointed out, when you're in good company, you're not in bad company.
Yeah. I want to ask you about.
And by the way, one last thing about that before you go. All the 12-step programs, which I've got a lot of respect for, it seems to have served so many people well, they depend on Sangha. You hear people that take advantage of 12-step, talking about, I really need a meeting. Some of them go to meetings, even now, I think, via Zoom or whatever. I'm a big podcast listener, so I listen to some people that are benefiting from that. And they'll go to meetings every day, if that's what they feel that they need to keep their sobriety or whatever it is that they're working through.
To me, there's no doubt that we're real social creatures.
Yeah.
We really are on such a core root level. And I think that's why this time that we're going through is really challenging for many people, that you are cut off from your Sangha, from your community. And you don't have touch, you don't have that interaction. I don't know what the right intention to set is, moving from that kind of place of what you're supposed to do. All I know is that that's a difficult place to be in.
Well, yeah, I mean, no doubt. That's to say an understatement. But Gurudev often talked about that touch, by the way, and said that love is not expressed, doesn't have to be expressed physically through physical touch. I mean, there's disciplines around monasticism, for example, that recommend against, too much physical touching. And he would always say, it doesn't matter. You can love with a loving look, with a loving thought, with a loving heart, a loving word. And I think we can touch one another in all of those ways. And primary of all those ways is with thought. We can reach out in thought. Lakshmi and I have a big list of everybody that we like to pray for every day. And we, when we're out hiking, which we like doing every day, we often list, everyone that we want to do prayers for. And then, at the end we do, Trauma Comes and Sarve Sham. And we really feel that connectedness through doing that. It may not, even if it's not benefiting them, it's benefiting us, because it's making us feel like we've reached out. We've reached out from our hearts. And we'll let them know that we're keeping them in our prayers if it's appropriate, because that may give them some courage.
Yeah, I totally agree, and think that might be that level that we're interacting on beyond the touch, on this kind of energetic level, is maybe underemphasized quite often, the power of it. But it also makes me think of like yes and, like, or because someone just puts a hand on your shoulder sometimes, and that just also speaks volumes, and there's a connection that happens there, right? And we're physical creatures too. So it seems that wouldn't have to be one or the other, that they both
definitely not. And I love I love to hug people and be hugged, totally. And I love receiving or giving that pat on the shoulder or whatever it is, or for that matter, a great massage. Yet what comes to mind is that mantra initiation is the touchiest of touches that I've ever experienced. It's usually conveyed in what's called initiation is diksha, and sparsa diksha means that you initiate by touch. You touch somebody when you transmit the mantra. It's usually done that way but it does not have to be done that way. It can be done by a look, it can be done by a word, and it can be done by a thought, and it can be done long distance. Gurudev specified all of those. And I was once in a room full of people being reinitiated. It's a long story, so I won't go into those details. But it suddenly became clear to everyone in this room that he was initiating us because we'd been initiated before, but he didn't go around and touch any of us. And someone said, well, Gurudev, could you go ahead and initiate us into this mantra? And he said, that's what I'm doing. He was just talking in a very matter-of-fact way. And I kind of laughed inside. I mean, I was thrilled when he said that, because that was my experience. When I heard the person ask, I said, this sounds egotistic, so I'm hesitating, but what the heck? I'm egotistic, so why not? I was thinking, can't you feel what's happening here?
That's a great example of how your expectations can get in the way, because maybe my guess would be that this person had an expectation for something to happen beforehand, and then it didn't, and because it didn't, that got in the way of the actual experience.
Yeah. But it was palpable, you could feel that you were being touched for sure. Gurudev also says that in his affirmations for inner peace. He talks about healing and transmitting healing to others. If you have a lot of energy, that you can transmit it through your touch. And he said, if you have really a lot of energy, you can, it's right there in that recording, Affirmations for Inner Peace. He says, if you really have a lot of energy, you can transmit it long distance through thought alone. That's more or less a quote. So we can touch, and this is a good time to cultivate that.
Yeah, Reverend Paraman, thanks so much for taking this time. It's really been such a pleasure to connect with you. I do want to ask if there's anyone listening that would like to maybe get in touch with you or learn more about what it is that you're doing. What's the best way to do that?
Email is the best. And should I say my address? Or how should
sure. If you don't, if that's okay for you.
No, it's fine. No, it's totally fine. It's my name's Paraman Barsel, and so it's the initials PB, and then the number 2030 at gmail.com. So PB, and like I say on the phone when I'm ordering things, PB like peanut butter. They always get that. 2030 at gmail.com. And I'm very happy to be in touch with anyone about anything. Lakshmi and I both enjoy talking to people who want to talk about yoga or anything else, or people who would like to join our sutra study, which these days is by Zoom. We've got some folks from New Zealand and Australia and all parts of the U.S. It's wonderful in a way, because when it was just in our living room, which I loved because we all got to hug one another. Speaking of touch, it was great, and I could miss that, but at the same time, I'm getting to see all these old Sangha buddies that I wouldn't otherwise see from all over the world. Not that we have a huge group, it's just the right size so that we still have a nice discussion. So that's something that's available too if people want to send me an email and say, I'd like to check out the Sutra study. It's free, by the way.
Perfect. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Avi. You're a great interviewer, and your questions were profound.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
If you've enjoyed this content and think others might as well, please feel free to share and subscribe.